I'm glad that you got to make it. Yeah. See how this goes. I'm fixing the live stream right now. Okay. Riley, how goes it, buddy? I'm doing well. I don't think so, but we'll see. Once I'm up on the panel, though.
That sounds really interesting.
Hello, folks. We're not going to start. Don't get too alarmed, but we're not going to start for another 20 minutes or so. So please note the bar is over here, the food's in the back. Mingle about, and we'll start up in about 20 minutes. All right. Thanks. Are you there?
I mean, in a big pile. Yeah. Oh, they'll just go through the around. Unfortunately, we jumped a lot more expensive. We will now pay $7. But now it's yeah, it's probably like reach out. It's sure.
Around the corner and down the stairs, I know there's garbage cans.
Oh my God, that's what the people don't even Small scale. So And not even spiritual. Like what?
Yeah, I didn't see it. Kind of deal.
So we're about to start up in a minute here, and now is your opportunity to be, I'm giving you permission to appoint yourself as a VIP here. We have a bunch of reserved that are not really reserved. It was just kind of like making us think we were a little cooler than maybe we were. But the couch is wide open, and you'll have like front row seats. It's like in living room theater or something like that, right? And then all these reserved chairs are not really reserved. Yes, thank you. So yes, people come up and participate.
Or your favorite.
We're going to.
Okay. All right. So, thank you, everybody. Welcome. So you are. Sorry, we're getting here. So you're in the right place. This is the Stop, Collaborate, and Listen if you are a Vanilla Ice fan. That's what we're going to be talking about the whole time. So, and they're going to sing it, actually. We're performing it the whole time. Nice, you got it?
Yeah.
Nice. Work the choreography. No, so we've got a great panel here tonight, and we also, so you are in eROI, we're a digital creative agency here, and I can't take any of the credit for tonight or any of the other 5 or 6 events that we have hosted all week. We've got one more tomorrow. Our employees really ran with all of this and did an incredible job, so a round of applause for them. Thank you. And the reason why we do this is really, it's actually something that Kim kind of planted the seed with me. Kim, Malek with Salt and Straw, and I have been friends for a long time. And one of the things of her brand is really being a generous brand and being all about hospitality and being part of the community. And so this is our opportunity to be part of the creative community and have a panel that, in my mind, talks is much more relevant than just the advertising world or the digital marketing world, but it's really collaborating in product companies and across multiple companies to have like incredible products to bring to the world. And Portland is kind of at the epicenter of doing collaboration right. So I think, you know, a lot of you are probably from Portland, but you know, if we have people from out of town, like people should be studying this because we do it really well here, and this panel does it really well. So my last thing before introducing Tatiana, who put a lot of the organization into this panel, is that to thank our sponsors. So that Scott, who's on his iPhone here, but is really a great guy. He runs marketing for Postano, and so a lot of the, it's basically for a lot of the social media feeds that you'll see on the screens, like in the storefront of the coffee shop that used to be Backspace, but it became Design Week Portland eROI. And so we've been having a lot of the feeds, like anytime you tag MO Design, it will show up in that. What?
It's MOD series.
MOD series. Thank you. That's why I really.
But Ryan does use MOD design, so if you'd like to join him on it.
I've been doing this wrong the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's horrible. And then also, maybe I'll get this one right. DWPDX, Design PDX, hashtag that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's just Postano. I also want to thank Salt and Straw. We've got a little treat for you at the end of this. We've got some goodies there. And then also World Foods sponsored, and we can thank them for the food that we have. And Pear. So thank you for all the artwork that is up. 90% of the proceeds, or in some cases 100%, all go to a really amazing nonprofit that you'll hear about more tonight. So with that, Tatiana is going to introduce the panel.
I didn't know you were going to plug it. I'm going to hold time.
Okay, so thank you so much to everyone for coming. I just wanted to give a little bit of the backstory as to why a panel of multidisciplinarians on collaboration. Obviously, this is Design Week, where we talk a lot about design and naked photos of Steven Sagmeister. But really, collaboration is something that is super important. And I'm excited to get to know how collaboration influences all of these unique individuals. And so I read a really great article when I was doing some of the research by Thomas Friedman in the New York Times. And he talks a lot about collaboration and how it's unique to the Silicon Valley as opposed to it is in Washington, D.C. And I learned that collaboration actually has two definitions. First one being the one that I think we all are here to talk about, which is working together. And then the other definition, the second definition, is one that's unique to Congress, which actually means that you're committing treason. And it's where you cross party lines and you vote for the other party. So I would totally plan this joke. I totally planned this joke thinking that Joe Biden was going to come to my event, but he couldn't make it. It's okay. He's in Seattle right now, but he did stop by Salt and Straw. So you'll notice there, that's Mark Zuckerberg, who is credited for the first definition. And then there's Mr. Joe Biden enjoying some Salt and Straw, which you all will be as well. So you're welcome.
Yeah, this aviator's rocking this.
Portland's very sunny.
Yeah. The future's bright.
So when we talk about collaboration, we're definitely in an age right now where there are plenty of tools for collaboration. I think the most prominent one right now is Wikipedia. It's basically where we have a collective knowledge where anyone can go edit any article, might get edited back, but it's definitely a different way of approaching knowledge. We have tools like Envision that are specific to design and development where we can create a better way to facilitate a very important conversation. Same with GitHub. Developers go crazy for GitHub. And really what we're looking at is not just the tools to help collaboration, but a change in mindset. And so last year at this time, the other design lead, Nicole and I each put on an event. Mine was called the Newlyweds, and it was a game show where designers and developers had a very good conversation about what it really means to collaborate with one another. And that was a pretty isolated and singular conversation just between Desi's and Debbie's. A lot of love there. But really what we were looking at is shifting not only with whom we work, but how we work. And so this year, what I really wanted to do is step back from creative agencies as a whole and look at collaboration across fields and countries and languages. And with these four very intelligent individuals, began to explore that topic. So with that, I will hand over to Gerry Blakney, who is our wonderful creative director here at eROI, and he will moderate this panel. Hopefully they won't get too crazy, but a little crazy as we explore this topic together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Tatiana. No, Tatiana really did a ton of work, and same with the rest of the team here at eROI. put this panel together. I'm avoiding using this as much as possible because I feel like my voice projects well enough. Maybe we can do like, you want it closer? Or is that good? Maybe we can do like a signal. If I'm not paying attention, you can just raise your hand and I'll know that you want me to speak louder. And then later, Phil, raising your hand will mean there's a question. I wanted to thank the team here and thank you all for coming on the panel. So thank you. I thought first maybe we'll start with your personal bios and maybe what interests you about collaboration, and then we'll get into the hard-hitting questions.
Oh.
Yeah. Then you all have already said you. Yeah. So who wants to start? Yeah. So we have probably a minute, maybe a minute, 2 minutes. Perfect. Let's start with Kelley.
All right. Bio. Oh, in a minute. So I'm the owner, director of ADX and Portland Made, and now a scholarship fund called the Make It Fund. And I don't know, I'm a little punk rock girl from Washington, D.C. Moved out here 20 years ago. Worked for a bunch of environmental nonprofits, worked for the private sector, went to grad school, worked for the government, and then went out on my own and got kind of hooked on that, and have done some real estate projects, some food-related businesses, and then I started a place called Art Department, which is what kind of got me into the world of working with small creative firms and individuals who were really trying to make a living doing their craft. And I just, I'm not like a physically creative person. I don't make things, but I'm very good at kind of bringing people together and bringing resources together, and that's what I love to do for other people to help them manifest the things that they want to do. So I discovered that about myself after 42 years on this planet, and now I get to do what I love by helping other people do what they love. So.
Hi, I'm Kim Malek, and I own Salt and Straw Ice Cream. And thank you. We've been in business for about a little more than 3 years. And prior to starting this company, I've worked at a lot of big Fortune 500 companies in marketing. And in 1996, I'd been at Starbucks coffee in the early days. There were 30 stores when I started, and my parents felt really sad for me because I didn't get a good job out of college. I was like, no, it's gonna be, pretty big someday.
Small local startup.
Yeah, I was, and Howard Schultz's wife was working 2 jobs to make our payroll, and it was an interesting time to be there. And as the company got bigger, I always really missed the days of those small, kind of more, I'm passionate about community and neighborhood places, and I miss being more hands-on from that perspective. And so in 1996, I told a friend I'd like to open an ice cream shop in Portland, Oregon, because I thought it would have the same feel. And the reason I love Portland, and I've lived obviously in Seattle and Silicon Valley, is I think this city has a unique kind of sense of, it's very community oriented. People are very collaborative. Ryan's not bullshitting you. And as I went on to work and live in different cities, I always really missed that. And so I worked at Adidas and Yahoo during the boom times. And most recently, I was working at Red, which is the company Bono started to raise money for AIDS in Africa. And I was on a weekend trip to Portland and fell in love with someone who I met at a bar. Moved back to Portland, and he wouldn't let me rest until I finally realized this dream I'd had forever. And collaborations for us, my cousin had heard I was starting this company and packed everything he owned into his Subaru and moved into my basement and started making ice cream. And he was 25, and so I thought, well, how are we going to make this work? And so we started to reach out to people who were chocolate makers or beer brewers or great charcuterie houses like Olympic Provisions, and asked them, like, can you help us figure out how to make ice cream? And they did. I mean, that's one thing that's unique about Portland. Like, people took us in and wanted to help and see this happen. And I quickly realized like the energy of this community working together was, first of all, much more fun than us doing it on our own, and also made a better product. And we were able to kind of tell this story of what's happening locally, and it wasn't about us, it was about what was happening in the local community. And so that's sort of how collaboration came into our world, and now we're kind of known for doing that a lot, and we love it. It's our favorite part of our job.
That's true. So many stories about Portland started in a bar.
They don't always end well.
Yeah. This one did. Pippa, do you have a story like that?
I have many stories.
Yeah. She just told me.
But that's another panel.
That's another panel. I'm a Portland girl. My name is Pippa Arend. I grew up on 63rd and Sandy Boulevard, Madison area. I have the good fortune of going to Catlin Gable, though I'm really thankful to Grandma for that. And the brief bio is right after college, where I actually studied choreography. I went to Poland and did metalworking. I ran a metalworking business both in Poland and here in America. But it was in Poland that I really discovered that I loved America. I had no idea. I loved America, and I love our system that can, in its best forms, really create a structure, a platform on which people can really build on their strengths and really work to achieve their own goals and work with others to achieve their goals. I love America. I'm a Europhile and I love to travel, but I love America. And then, so in the 90s, I came back to America, and it came back to Portland very specifically. It was an interesting time to come back to Portland, because I sort of came with that wave of cultural creatives that really started to come in the late 90s and early aughts, and I was of the same age, but I'm from Portland, so I sort of felt like it was the best of both worlds. Like, I know every single street in this town, and so this deep familiarity, and it was an entirely new city at the same time, and it continues to be an entirely new city for me. I love it. So I was doing my metalwork still at that time here, but what I in my late 20s, I was like drinking a lot and welding. It was a great life to have in my late 20s. Red hair, girly rhinestones, but what I realized what I was missing actually was accountability to others, and that's when I met my current coworkers, Joy Cartier and Beth Burns, and they invited me to be an art component at the Salvation Army Greenhouse School, which was a program for homeless kids. That program shut down within a year of me being there, so I was simply really, really well positioned to suddenly be a part of this team. Three of us. It takes three to make a pair. Thank you.
You're so Presbyterian.
I'm so Presbyterian. And that's a whole story which we can get into or not, but the story of PAIR, which for those of you that don't know, is a program for homeless and transitional young people. We work with 15 to 24-year-old kids about 2 blocks away from here, and we just started our 13th school year, and thank you. And the beauty of PAIR is it's not funded by the county or the government. It is funded by you guys. It's funded by individuals. It's funded by the hard work of the people that care about these kids and that want to step forward and really be their parents. So that's it.
Dan, you're going to round this up?
I'm going to tie it all together. I'm going to collaborate right now. My name is Havig. I grew up a punk rock kid in Southern California, listening to a lot of DC hardcore and LA hardcore. As it were. You know what they say about that, right? If you're not now, you never were. Ouch.
No.
Cops are so harsh. You can have inner punk too. I moved up to Portland to go to Reed College with Robin and Mike, who were back there.
Oh, wow.
And did a year abroad in England, where I also learned to love America.
You are connecting up with us.
I am. I'm doing it. It's going to happen. And really, what I learned, so I went to London School of Economics. I was in economics at the time, and I went to the LSE.
So he's nice.
What's that?
You are not smart. You don't fit that.
And to tell you the truth, the LSE was terribly disappointing. But the Leinster Arms was not. And so I was a beer drinker before that, but I really fell in love with beer. And really what I really fell in love with, frankly, was pub culture. I've been a brewer for 20 years now. I swear to God, I'm not a beer geek. A lot of my friends say things like, hey, are you going to go so-and-so's tapping blank, blah, blah. Nah, I don't give a shit. I don't care. But, you know, if you were to say, hey, there's a great new bar and it's like this, well, I'll go to the pub. Like, I want to go to the pub. That's what I want to do. And beer is crucial to that. So anyway, I got out of the read. I thought I still wanted to be an economist, so I went to the University of Minnesota. And that wasn't okay. I lost faith. I dropped out. I've always been a very mechanical person. I started homebrewing in graduate school for what I call the Canadian reason, which is not because I was so super into making beer, but because I liked better beer than I could afford to buy, which is why homebrewing took off in Canada in the 90s because of taxes. Not that that's a statement. So anyway, I started homebrewing, and I found out that there was this whole language of flavor that I didn't know, but I intimately spoke. I can cook almost nothing, but I can taste, from the beginning, I can taste the beer and tell you how to make it. I don't know why. It's just a language I know. So I dropped out. And since there were no Alfa Romeo shops in the entire Minneapolis-St. Paul metropolitan area, which is where most of my mechanical experience came from, because if you own old Alfas, that's where your experience is. So I took a job in a really big brewery, Minnesota Brewing Company. It was an old Schmidt plant. We had the capacity to do 2 million barrels a year at the time. If any of you remember this stuff, we were doing about 400,000 barrels a year of Pete's Wicked Ale. Yeah. Just so you know, that's bigger than Widmer. I permanently ruined my hands for the rest of my life. That's another story. Dedicated to my craft. Anyway, I was there for a short amount of time, joined the union. And then a job at this little brew pub called Rock Bottom Brewery in Minneapolis opened up. I didn't know much about it. It was a good opportunity. I went there. I was with Rock Bottom Breweries for 16 years. It was a big corporate brew pub. The best part about it was that we had 35 breweries. What's great about having 35 breweries is you have 35 brewers. As crappy as the company could be sometimes, it was kind of like we were a split family. The brewers were kind of one little part of this business, and the rest of the business was literally everyone else. And we kind of got to run our show the way we wanted to run our show. And so every year, sometimes 3 times a year, we would get all the brewers in the company together. So I was fortunate enough to come up through this company where you learned from each other constantly. We taught and learned from each other all the time. It was like graduate school for small brewing. The company got bought about 4 years ago. They made some decisions that I thought were horrible. I let that be known very publicly because I'm a Havig, and therefore got fired. A friend of mine, Ben Love, who was a brewer at the time at Hopworks, looked at me and said, we really need to do something. And I said, yeah, it's probably good. So we ended up starting Gigantic Brewing Company, and we've been running Gigantic for about 2.5 years. Salt and Straw got in contact with us.
One of the first.
Early on. And we made a really awesome ice cream with them. We had a really, really hoppy Imperial Pale Ale, and they combined it with what was totally genius pineapple upside down cake.
Yeah.
If I may use this language. Fucking brilliant.
My cousin did it, so it's awesome.
Yeah. I went to school in England, so you could say absolutely fucking brilliant. Yeah. South London. That's me. So we're at Gigantic.
Which I suppose means I can't drop the F-bomb now, because I didn't go to school. So I'll keep it.
There's no need to be cultural.
No, that's fair enough.
Yeah, we're doing it.
This is great. So the first question actually is aimed at Kelley.
Oh.
Yeah, so you get the first one. So what has been your most successful collaboration to date?
Wow.
I mean, with that introduction, of course.
I don't know, our most successful.
Or maybe your weirdest.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, we one kind of fun story that relates to our little experience yesterday with the vice president is, you know, when we were very first starting, kind of two things come to mind. One is, there is a chocolate maker in town named Charlie, and he owns Woodblock Chocolate, and you should try it while you're here in Portland if you haven't. And he goes to origin countries and imports coconuts and hand grinds them and then roasts them to smell. That's the only way he knows when it's ready to go. And then he turns them into beautiful chocolate bars, and you know, he doesn't make much. And we met him when he was very first starting his company. We were very first starting ours. We were a food cart when we first started. And so we were all talking, and he started making very special ice creams, or chocolates just for us, so that we could turn them into ice creams, and we could just sell them a little bit at a time, and then he couldn't make any more. And then after a while, he got enough money, and a lot was from these collaborations we were doing to, you know, buy another roaster, and you know, he's not only because of us, but you know, he's doing really well now. It's the ice cream that Vice President Joe bought yesterday. But and I'm not saying that's our most successful because of that. It's just a really beautiful story to me. One of my favorite sayings is that all ships rise. And for me, like doing these collaborations, like he's doing really well as a business for a lot of reasons, but partly because we work together. And we do this cool ice cream with him where you know, we probably would have never discovered this process if we hadn't sat across the table and looked at each other and worked together, where when we're making ice cream, it's cold and it's spinning, and we add this really warm chocolate, and it fractures into thousands of tiny little pieces that suspend in almost a liquid form when they're frozen. And so it's just sort of like those kinds of collaborations to me are really so, I mean, you can sit in a room by yourself and come up with great products, but to sit together and collaborate and come up with this ice cream together is really special to me because the product is really good. We have this deep relationship. His business is now growing right alongside with ours, and so I'm really, it's just something, an example of something I'm really proud of that we do together.
Kim actually donated ice cream to our offsite for our staff as well. And I tried Woodblock. Is there salt in there as well?
Yeah, we have a little bit of Jacobson Salt, which is another company that was starting at the same time as us. And Ben came into our shop on Alberta, and you know, he's like, I'm trying to get this company going. He was at a commercial kitchen where we were passing through one day, and we met. And you know, so we were using a little bit of his salt in our ice cream, in this Woodblock chocolate ice cream. And he's also, you know, we've all kind of grown up together. And so yeah, he harvests salt from the Oregon coast. Allegedly the first to do so since days of Lewis and Clark.
Wow.
But you know, to learn about people like that through ice cream is interesting too. And so just highlighting the community, I think it's one of the reasons that people like to come back, and you know, people always ask like, why are there lines at your shops? And I think it's that exploration through collaboration and finding out what's going on, you know, beyond our, you know, what might be a boring thought in my head. You know, it's much bigger than that.
So your most successful story involves yourself and Tyler from Salt and Straw, right? Charlie, a chocolatier, and Joe, a salt maker, and Joe, a vice president. Ben. I apologize. I was trying to follow along, but to be witty at the same time.
You are, though. You just naturally are.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask, did you meet the vice president and maybe shake his hand?
Me?
Yeah.
I did.
Have you washed your hand lately?
He kissed my cheek.
Oh,
sorry.
It's not that.
Tatiana has been raving about the vice president all day, very excited. So.
Yeah, no, it was quite a story. I'm on cloud nine. It was exciting. It was an honor.
So the most successful wasn't necessarily the ice cream she made with you, but
Right.
would you say that was your most successful?
Oh, They took much. I think a little punk rock cake.
Yeah. So actually, that's the funny thing. So we actually, this is vaguely personal. We have a beer out with Whitmer Brewing right now. So here's the backstory. The trade organization for small brewers is called the Brewers Association. The Brewers Association, like any association, has politics involved. Years and years ago, back in the dark craft brewing days of the late 90s when breweries were closing and things weren't looking so good, the Whitmer brothers signed a deal with Anheuser-Busch. Anheuser-Busch bought 24%, 26% of Whitmer. Some people remember this. It was politically contentious at the time. What people don't understand is, I mean, man, AB's technical knowledge is amazing. They were incredible. So what they were able to do for Whitmer was fantastic. It also gave Whitmer access to AB's distribution network, which was key for them. But come on, it's 26%. It's really not like, it's not a majority share. I mean, it's nothing, right? So a few years later, the Brewers Association was defining what it means to be a craft brewer. And they decided they would make it that if any more than 25%, F you, Whitmer, is owned by a corporation, you are not craft, regardless of the fact that everything that Whitmer does is blatantly craft, right? So in Oregon, I've been a member of the Oregon Brewers Guild board for a long time now. That happened in the early to mid 2000s. It pissed off a bunch of us because the Whitmer brothers are our friends, and we're friends with a lot of the brewers there, and we believe in them and whatnot. So we've always, my partner Bennett really, really, really sticks in his craw. So we really wanted to do something. Well, Whitmer has been, sorry, Whitmer, it's their 30th anniversary, and they're doing collaborations with 10 small Oregon brewers this year to celebrate being around and being part of our community, and which is rad. Yeah. And we're tiny. I mean, we literally make less than 1/10, less than 1/100th of the amount of beer that Whitmer makes. We are tiny. But they're like, we're friends with them, so like we'll make beer together. And we said, okay, since the Brewers Association has said that you are not craft, and 6 months ago made a big press release about, is your beer craft or is it crafty? Meaning, is it really made by a craft brewer, or is it made by someone who says they're a craft brewer, but it's crafty, like Blue Moon or someone else, blah, blah, blah. So we're like, yes, we will collaborate with you under one condition. The name of this beer is going to have the word crafty. Because we are assholes. And even better than this story, I love this story. So they agreed, and I have to talk technical brewing for a moment. So one thing that we've been experimenting with lately in collaboration with the Commons Brewery and Breakside Brewery and a few other breweries is doing a little technique called kettle souring. Sour beers are really popular, but sour beers a lot of times rely on microorganisms that can run wild in the brewery and ruin a bunch of stuff. Bad, dangerous. Well, you can get around this problem by, I will talk untechnically, getting your pre-beer into the kettle. All beer has to get boiled into the kettle, and instead of boiling it, you put a spoilage organism in there. Lactobacillus, you may have heard of it because
that's yogurt, right?
What? Yogurt, right? So you can either spend a bunch of money and go to the yeast company and get lacto, or you can just go get Nancy's Greek non-fat yogurt, live cultures in it, and then you chuck it in the kettle and you wait 24 to 48 hours, and the bacteria goes nuts and it makes everything sour. You then boil it, that kills everything, right? And then go about your brewing business. So we told that working brewers this, and they're like, that's a great idea. We can totally do this up at the Woodinville plant up in Washington. It'll work great. We've got a way to do it. So the date is set. Ben and I go up there. We've got 5 gallons of Nancy's freaking yogurt. And as we're met at the brewery, our contact there, Ben Dobler, you may recognize him from commercials where he says, what we have in this kit is just insane here. All about hops and stuff, you know? Yeah. That's our buddy Ben. And he says, so just so you know, this hasn't been approved yet. We got to go up and dump 5 gallons of yogurt in a kettle up in Woodinville, infect the entire brewery. It was awesome. Of course, the micro results came back great. It was no big deal. Everything was fine. That beer is available in incredible limited release. And everyone at Whitmer is thrilled about the fact that we called it Crafty Delicious.
Yeah.
So,
Welcome. You're next. Yeah.
Well, a question again?
Well, I have a new question for you. The new question is ADX is built heavily on the idea of collaboration. How do you think your work would be different if you didn't focus on collaboration so much?
We wouldn't exist. It's the foundation of our company.
Well, there's
We
something.
just wouldn't exist. And it's what we rely on, working together, putting everybody under one roof. What's so cool is like we've collaborated with so many different businesses in different industries. So with Brewing, we're and doing small run manufacturing for all their tap handles, Bowie and Astoria. So we've become kind of the tap handle production facility, which is pretty rad. I don't know if people know this about ADX, but we have a fabrication shop. So clients hire us on to make things for them. So we've done a bunch of displays and marketing collateral for the food industry, restaurant build-outs like Blakney and Tokyo Table. So we get a chance to collaborate across all these different industries, which is really amazing because that kind of, one of the things that you said that really resonates is, and it's really what ADX is all about, is giving people a physical space in which to come together and face-to-face have those conversations around like, how can we make what we're doing better by working together? And giving them access.
Yeah.
We should have a pub. We like to drink at ADX.
Yeah.
Drinking and power tools don't really go.
You just have rules. It's fine. Just have rules.
Yeah.
Yeah. Drinking and our machine are different working.
But we would love to have our own. Like it would be awesome to have our own brew, like our own brew. To work with you guys to do like because the makers movement is this big thing that's happening across the nation, and I think one of the things I'm really proud of is that ADX is really leading that movement. We get calls every week, people around the world who are like, how do you do this? How do we start within our community? And I try to tell them that it's more than just like putting a couple 3D printers in a room and tinkering around with it. It's like, it's these business to business collaborations and really trying to feed into this larger economic force that is at work. And we're just really lucky. We've all touched on this. Portland is a really incredible place right now. Like I oftentimes say, it's like Paris of the 20s, New York of the 50s. I really think we're going to look back on Portland and say, like, this is a thing. Like this was a thing, and it's happening, and we're all working across industries and sectors and working together and collaborating to really make these incredible products and thoughtful products.
That's an important point, though. It doesn't just happen. Like you can't just force it. It takes a lot of time. And if someone called us and said, "We want you to open in Seattle, and we know all these people will introduce you," and then in probably about 2 or 3 months you can be open and selling ice cream, and we're like, "Oh God, no! It doesn't. It takes. It's not a couple printers in a room, and like it takes years to build these relationships."
And you can't an ADX in Austin is going to be very different than an ADX in Portland. It's a culture-based company, and it takes.
It's entirely community dependent.
Yeah.
All this stuff is really the community has to be there before you can actually live together. That's the funny thing.
We didn't plan this segue. I think that's great. I'm going to go off on that tangent a little bit, but before we go on, I don't want to let this go. Van, will you commit tonight, to force this with a partnership with ADX? I think we all want it.
Yeah.
We could definitely work together.
See, we could not have a problem.
We're just a funny group.
Yeah.
I love
Terrific.
it's funny.
I had to do that, but the segue I wanted to go down was, I'll tweak the original question a little bit. Do you think your business, how different would it be if you were in a different city, or would it not work?
No, it would definitely work, but it takes the right person, the right group of people to get it off the ground. So people think it's about the tools and it's about the space and it's about these things, but it's really about that community building aspect. So the reason I got started here, I've been in Portland for 20 years. I know people across all industry sectors, you know, government and nonprofits, and yeah, and I just see these connections within my community. So whoever is in Austin or Detroit or wherever, it's that person that kind of sees all those connections and is able to leverage all of those resources and bring it together. Because, you know, we've even had some connection around like bringing, you know, youth where, you know, traditional education is just not working for them. I mean, our system is broken, and so kids are falling through the cracks, and what we're trying to do more of is engage kids in this economic opportunity and show them that you can go into the food industry, you can go into the brewing industry, you can go into these really cool artisanal manufacturing sectors, and manufacturing isn't like the Ford plant or like, you know, this bad, dirty, black lung kind of thing. It's like actually really creative, and you can be part of this family that is really supportive of your pathway through life. So that's something that we really are getting more into now, is getting more kids engaged in ADX and helping them tap into businesses that are looking for that like hungry workforce. Because we see those two things happening. Kids dropping out of school and a manufacturing sector that cannot find skilled labor for production level stuff. So like that connecting of the dots. So if somebody in the local community, wherever they are around the world, is able to kind of connect those dots and bring different people together and, you know, collaborate, work together, support each other for the rising of all ships, then, but a lot of places don't have that culture. Yeah, and well, one of the questions we get inevitably is from the larger companies in town, whether it's Nike or Wyman or Adidas. It's like, so what's your IP thing? How do you protect, you know, people from stealing your ideas? And we're like, we have a policy. It's called "Don't be a dick."
Yeah.
Don't steal other people's ideas. Like that's just lame. Like don't do that. Focus on your own ideas and support
More companies need the rule, don't be a dick. Of course, I'm not coming all the way. Pippa.
Is that a segue?
No. It wasn't about that topic. It was about the topic of Portland. As a dot connector, do you think that you and your other two partners, do you think you could have made the same magic in a different city?
I don't know the answer to that. I can say this, just coincidentally, Salt and Straw donates to Pear for our events. We're having our next event at ADX.
Wow.
I just talked to this guy, he's giving us beer next year.
Look at that collaboration.
Yeah, so, you know, so that's just like, that's,
yeah.
It's like, that's just already there. It's really amazing that, you know, this is a small town, this is a small panel, and, you know, two of these people, now third, are already involved in Pear. So I think to answer that, I can tell the story of the very first year at Pear, because we were three ladies, and we had a vision, and we knew about homeless kids. We had worked this out program where we had developed relationships with kids, but we didn't have any of the history of the whole back end, like how do you have a board, how do you make bylaws, how do you write grants, I didn't know how to type. I learned how to type, year 6, bottle of wine, 6 hours. And figured it out.
I'm a typer myself, so it's.
I learned Dvorak. It's
oh, whoa.
Oh,
yeah.
Whoa.
Where is my grandson?
Anyway.
Very impressive.
Where we want to go with that. But so we found a space. We used to be on Park and Alder downtown, because we called up this guy who had this building that said for rent, and he let us be in there, and so magically we were in this space downtown for very little rent, and it was this sort of dark, dingy spot. And our goal was to have 12 to 25 kids over the first couple of years. And our first day we had 11 kids, and within 9 months we were seeing 60 kids a day.
Wow.
And it was full on, and it was crazy, and there was 3 ladies, and it was potentially really dangerous. But that's actually another story, which I won't go into now, but it's just sort of the beauty of something like Pear, which is really bringing a lot of people together who have the same value, and that's, you know, growth and working together, and which is, you know, that's the spirit of all this. But what is so amazing is the financial piece, which was because we didn't take any federal or county money on purpose, so we could really run our program as lean and mean as possible, with as few strings as possible, without having to hire a whole new person to do all the paperwork, to manage all those funds, and also to eliminate the funds that would make us not be able to do what we felt we needed to do conscientiously for each individual kid. We didn't want any restricted money. We wanted people to fall in love with us, give us money if they approved of us, and trust us in the same way that we trust and fall in love with each kid and trust them to grow. So our first year we raised, in terms of cash, $88,000, and we spent $87,000. But we also raised $300,000 in in-kind support. So, you know, just material. Yeah, so we actually got an award that year, the Willamette Valley Development Award, for the youngest nonprofit to make the most in-kind, to receive the most in-kind contributions. And so that really was sort of the basis that really, you know, sort of set the stage. And I think our food program is sort of a highlight of that. You know, we didn't have a kitchen, and we wanted to feed these kids because that's really important. You can't do anything if you're hungry. So I called up old friends and, you know, old drinking partners, and, you know, just like, you know, people I knew in town, because I'm from this town. You know, John Eisenhardt at Pazo Ristorante, Javier Hurtado, who, you know, I met him because I bought a truck from him, and then the next year he started on 19th in Alberta, and then the next year he started his first Cha-Cha Taqueria on Broadway. Now look at him, you know, so these are the people that started to recognize the value of creating a place for growth and supporting these kids. But what I want to say to this idea of collaboration is, I've been thinking about it, because I think, you know, we are all Portland, right? We're here, and so by definition, we also have we hold a similar culture, which means we hold a similar sort of value set. We value sort of similar things. We value authenticity, we value freedom of speech, we value difference, we value supporting everyone, we value the underdog, we value equanimity. These are all things that we sort of take for granted. And because of that, we can collaborate. It's sort of it's a no-brainer. We just do that. However, it doesn't work, and it's not necessarily even appropriate to collaborate sometimes cross-culturally. This may sound edgy, but, you know, but the idea is, I'm thinking very specifically about the different homeless youth organizations in Portland. PAIR is very specific in how we work with kids. And then there's, you know, this youth, there's Outside In. They do incredible work with homeless youth. They do it very differently than PAIR. They have, they focus on more of the structural underpinnings of the physical needs of homelessness, medical, housing, job training. PAIR really focuses on the interiority of a young person. We really feel that a kid cannot hold on to the physical pieces. They can't hold on to a job. They can't hold on to an apartment if they don't have the internal maturation to allow them to make the decisions that will allow them to move forward. So is it appropriate that we collaborate with Outside In New Avenues for Youth? Not always. It's really important that we maintain these differences that really meet different needs. So on one scale, collaboration with them is really important, but on another scale, it's really important to maintain our differences and our identity.
We just opened in Los Angeles, so we are going through that right now. I don't know if we're running out of time.
I am going to ask about that.
Okay.
I think it's interesting to see how your business maybe is different in a different setting.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually move back to Van real quick.
No, I don't want to talk. I just want to say we did move out. We moved outside of Portland, and it's been okay. No, go ahead.
Tell us what it's like in Los Angeles.
Because it's really sunny down there.
Joe would really need a sunglasses.
I didn't need to jump in.
I love what you said about the two things that I love about what you said, because these are questions that come up for me all the time, is working with bureaucracy that will slow me down and not allow me to serve more people, and and in the same sense, working with other nonprofits that have that. So one of the goals is to serve more people, but no matter what the business is. But sometimes collaborating isn't the right way to do that. So that was just interesting. Like,
Yeah.
No, go.
Well, and the way I was taking it was sometimes on the flip side of collaboration is it's evil twin sometimes, brainstorming. And one of the questions that the staff came up with was, what does brainstorming look like in the beer world? And how does that happen? And what I think is also interesting too, about all of you actually, is you all have a certain set of standards. And I appreciate that they're quite high standards. And so how do you then navigate that world with collaboration and brainstorming and still maintain your integrity as an organization and as a person? But I want to start with you as far as beer is concerned.
What's that flavor? So an interesting thing about Gigantic is my partner Ben and I are both brewers. And so, I mean, this sounds really lame, but honestly, it's really true. Every beer that we do is a collaboration between Ben and I, and sometimes involves Scott Guckel, our head brewer. We have never made a beer that someone else hasn't had a hand in. So how does the brainstorming work? We come up, one of us comes up with an idea we want to explore in beer, right? It could be something really, really boring, like, let's make a Baltic Porter, you know? And then someone roughs out the idea. And we always, the way we work best is someone roughs out the idea, and then you talk about it afterwards. This is very, very hard to communicate. Well, remember I had said earlier that beer was a language that I just knew somehow. The funny thing is I've worked with a lot of brewers in my life. And I've looked at a lot of recipes, and there are brewers that I look at their recipe and I think, I don't know what the hell you're doing. Like it's like there are dialects among brewing, and some people speak the same languages and some people don't. Conveniently, Ben and I speak the same language, so it's very easy for us to come up with a concept and then rough it out. Yeah. It gets a little more interesting when we just did a collaboration with the Commons, which is a great brewer if you don't know them. They're a fantastic small brewer in town. And they do mainly sort of Belgian farmhouse stuff. And we want, every year, Dick Cantwell up at Elysian Brewing in Seattle has this huge, ridiculous pumpkin beer festival. And weirdly, no one in Portland cares at all about pumpkin beer. But outside of our little bubble, everyone like right about this time is like, when's the pumpkin beer coming? It's like crazy.
We care more about the pumpkin shakes and burgers.
Totally, they rule. Yeah, they rule, and pumpkin beer is usually so terrible. But so Dick's a friend, and he bothers us every year. You got to make one, so we don't really want to make one by ourselves. So with the Commons this year, this is a good example of how the brainstorming works. So we were like, let's make a pumpkin beer. Okay, great. What are we going to do to make it good?
Oh, there's that.
There's that basic. You get this, right? You totally get this. We have this dumb idea. Now how are we going to actually make this stupid thing work? And so we decided, we started throwing stuff at the wall, and we were like, okay, let's go Belgian yeast strain to make it fruity, because you can sort of evoke that spice character with the yeast without using spice, because I'm not using effing pumpkin pie spice. So that's step one. It's step one. Step two becomes, okay, but pumpkin has almost no flavor. So let's use something else. So it has to be a pumpkin beer. So you use like a couple of number 10 cans, which is like 20 pounds of pumpkin. It's like nothing. And then we bought a bunch of acorn squash and roasted that because it tastes way better, right? And so so my contribution was we're using acorn squash. The Commons were like Belgian yeast strain. Ben was like, I think it should be smoked. I don't know why. And then Sean Burke from the Commons was like, yes. And then I had a hard time understanding what we were getting at. I was like, okay, wait a minute, guys. What the hell is going on? This is looking like a shit show to me. And then Sean brought it all together and he said, no. Not the dessert, the dinner.
Yes.
And suddenly I was like, I get it. It's the ham with the pumpkin side.
Yes.
That's what we're making.
Yes. Amen.
And so yeah, so we named it Pumpkin Dinner, not Dessert. Draft.
I can't wait.
Yeah, draft only. But that's a good example of sort of like, and we don't speak the same language as the guys from the company. That's the thing. I look at what they do and I'm like, huh, that's what you did? I wouldn't have done it that way. That's funny. Okay. Yeah, but they're beer's great.
Kim, how about putting those flavors together?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not the best. I wish Tyler was here, my cousin, because he does all of that work. I don't. But I guess probably one of the most interesting examples along those lines, he has been doing a series every year for the past couple of years with chefs, and we started off doing, it was an idea that I had because I love to go to those dinners where there's a visiting chef and the two chefs collaborate and they make these amazing meals. And I thought, well, couldn't we have a visiting chef in our kitchen? We could come up with an ice cream that sort of exemplifies their philosophy behind cooking and their, what happens in their restaurant through our ice cream. And so some really, really interesting things came from that. And Jen Lewis and Tyler did an uni ice cream with just this really high-end, beautiful sea urchin. And Michael Battaggio in Los Angeles did a collaboration with Tyler that was a baked potato ice cream. And it's a cool process because they sit down and Tyler has these maps where they sketch out like their ideas and what he sees their restaurant and philosophy behind cooking.
He draws it?
It's all drawings, like they draw
really?
and write, and
well,
it's
and you did the urchin.
a beautiful.
And you're like plus ice cream.
Yeah, and then it's beautiful.
That's
and then,
really weird.
Well, the recipe isn't sketched, but like that's how he does his
I
brainstorming.
was just saying, but let me ask you, are they working in the same room when
Yeah,
this happened?
across the table, usually, although Michael Battaggio wasn't in
Yeah.
but he was, I saw Tyler writing it, it's just his methodology, I guess. And then they kind of go back and forth, like he'll create a flavor and then send it to them and they'll taste it and send it back and they'll talk and until it becomes something, just exactly the process that you talked about. And one of my favorite stories as a result of this, he was going back and forth with Gabe Rucker from Lake Pigeon, who just won the James Beard Award. He was in France traveling, and Tyler got a call in the middle of the night. He didn't know who it was, and he answered the phone. Gabe's I've just been, up all night drinking wine and having a great time. And I wanted to tell you how much this means to me. And here Tyler is like, oh my God, I can't even believe I got to work with you, and now you're calling me to say this. And it was such an honor. And he said, no, I just really was struck about, I loved having you in our kitchen, because it just brought this whole new kind of mixing things up that we would have never had and disrupted things and brought some new ideas to us, which was like, seriously, like Tyler's really talented, but just to have him say that was quite humbling. And I think that's a really good example of through these collaborations, how you may, they came up with this really great ice cream together, but it had sort of this lasting trail that was left behind in their kitchen that brought a lot of new ideas to them and new energy and this connection. So it was a nice story.
I want to pick up on just this one word that she said, which is the disrupt part, because I think that there's, it's really great when you get in that flow with yourself and with other people where it's working really well and everyone's really high and energy's like has that kind of young, fresh energy where it just works. It just feels like magic. Collaboration can just feel like magic. But there's also the component, after 13 years of pair, where it's like, thank God we all have the same value. I want to really focus on that because that's been sort of the anchoring thing during times when we haven't necessarily liked each other or been in good moods. And we still have something that we have to do, and we have to do it together. And the only way we've been able to do that is really hold on to something that's higher than all of us and just work and work and work and work and work and work and hopefully trust each other, because by definition collaboration is people coming together. By definition that means friction. So there can, and I think the best collaborations really are born of trust and a kind of capacity for impersonalness, that word that makes it so you don't take it personal, so you can just cut to the chase and really, get to what it is you're trying or need to create.
We had an improv coach kind of help us with that once, and Tyler does this, and we both have this philosophy when we're in the middle of collaborations, like you just described that actual process, and it's that what did they say? Something like yes and. So I'm always going to take what you're giving me, and I may bring it in a different direction, but we both have that philosophy. But watching him in brainstorming sessions, it's very important to keep the energy flowing, and because it may be a really stupid idea to smoke the beer, but to say yes and kind of go with it a little bit, at least down a path for a while, is an important part of it that we've experienced.
But you're right too. You eventually have to sort of call a halt.
Yes.
You're like,
Which,
this is turning into a shit.
Yes. Yeah.
But that's when you go on a different tangent.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely. Not all roads lead somewhere.
absolutely.
Well,
But they might eventually,
exactly.
but they might inspire the process for the next row.
well, and yeah, I mean, we certainly, because you guys are developing your own products, I'm in the position of watching other people develop their own products, and so you see them going down this road, and sometimes you feel like, maybe that's the that's it in your head, and like, not really playing out the way like you imagined. But that being said, like I think this like riffing off of each other's ideas, what I see brainstorming happening all the time. Like it's a daily activity at ADX because you've got metal workers working next to woodworkers, working next to and even just people from different backgrounds, like master craftsmen who are now retired, working next to new people who are just coming into the scene. And so everybody is just really good at watching each other and kind of observing each other's processes. And we recently started this collaboration with Jason Berikowski, who's the chef that started High Common, and he's with Provisions and Woodman. And we started a lunch series called Lunch Wagon, and it was bringing people together around food, around conversations around local manufacturing. And the connections of the food movement are really like what I use in explaining kind of what I see going on in kind of the crafts movement, or the manufactured goods movement. Is people were really trying to understand the farmers who are growing their products, who are the chefs that are then taking those ingredients and expressing themselves creatively, and that connection between producer and consumer. And so we're really trying to see how that plays itself out in this world of manufactured goods. We're all consumers. I encourage you all. I did bring swag. It's not ice cream. I'm sorry.
I would love to make an ice cream.
I know.
Yes. Well, we can soak the cream in wood chips and then strain it out. It'll have the.
See, I think you're selling yourself short when you say, Tyler's the only one. I know.
But we have these Portland-made cards, and it's Feel-Free Supportland. And we all consume, and by consuming locally and using the Supportland card, you can keep money flowing within our local community. And so that's another tool that's been developed by another creative woman in Portland, Katrina, Scott Carlo, and her partner Michael. And they're looking to scale that and take it nationally to put it in every community. But it's a really great way to just bring awareness to when you're buying from other people, like you're buying from your friends, you're buying from your community. It goes back into schools. It goes back into infrastructure in our neighborhoods, and those are really good long-term investments versus maybe investing in tech, where it grows really big, like crashes, and then it grows really big, and then moves to San Francisco, or it grows really big, whatever. It's just like this really kind of thoughtful, long-term investment in people and place.
Well, my next question that I was going to give you, Kelley, was about multidisciplinary collaboration and how that can lead. And I thought what was interesting about this was we were talking about the roads and not all roads, and we were talking about disruption. I think that's important as well, because if you're any good at your job or what you do, there's a fair amount of stubbornness that I found, and this is kind of the way we've done it. And sometimes you need those connections to kind of move you in a place. Pippa, I have to imagine that if we think of the different teachers that are coming in to help, and the students as collaborators in that process as well, that must be a relationship that maybe is sometimes difficult to navigate, but sometimes maybe moves you beyond what it would have become if it was just 5 stable, I don't mean to be rude, but stable creatives, like creating one thing. Everyone's coming from their own and moving forward. So maybe talk about that.
I'll try, because there's so many different scales to talk about. You know, there's the scale of the pair youth themselves, in, you know, their interest in coming into a facility that where they have to get along with other people. It's not that big in there, and there's a lot of kids. We see, you know, right now easily 55 kids a day, and it's in a space that is smaller than this. And there's punkers. There's no longer goths. They're now emos. Right? Yeah, good to know. You know, methy kids, and you know, and just the traveler kids. You know, just a bunch of different kinds of kids, and they all have to get along in a small space, and they do. It's really magical, and I invite you down there anytime. And then there's the scale of the people that started PAIR and are now, you know, we've hired now a number of people. We just hired our 7th staff person, and how we collaborate. And then there's the scale of how we interact with community members to have in-kind support and or donors. And then there's the scale that I think you're talking about of the teacher-student relationship. And so I think I'll just answer that just really quickly, because it's a really, I think, really beautiful way that we do that. And that the simple answer is with our conscience, because there's different. Each of us are different. There's different kinds of kids who have different needs, and on different days, everyone has different needs. And so just today at staff meeting, what we do is we talk about the kids that are sort of warranting attention for whatever reason, and we discuss how are we going to work with that kid. Do we need to play good cop, bad cop with that kid, so we can make sure that the kid has someone always safe at PAIR, someone who will always be the good cop, someone who is just their stable person, and then, you know, assign a bad cop, someone that they don't have much of a relationship with? Or does the bad cop actually need to be that person with whom they have the closest relationship? So we have really sort of you know, as transparent conversations as we can, that really sort of try to respond to each individual youth as conscientiously as possible for any given moment.
I think I'm going to ask one more question, and it's the most open-ended one that we have. And so, Brent, if you wanted to go to the last question, I'd like to ask all 4 of you, and we'll go down the line. How do you see collaboration changing our future? Now, it could be about Portland, it could be about your company, or it could be about the collaborations that we create here at night. But how do you see collaboration changing our future?
Oh, you want me to start?
Well, we can start with you, or we can start with Van, or we can Rochambeau and see who goes. What do you think? I just like to say it.
I can just come back.
Do it. No, yeah, do it.
I want to actually go back to Tatiana when she talked about Wikipedia at the beginning, because I really think that's the future. Because I want to go back to this idea of culture, and I think that you know, we're coming out of a culture of profound value and autonomy. And I think, you know, we can look at Mad Men, for example. You know, sort of 1950s America as sort of the epitome of you know, what it looks like to have a culture that really values autonomy. That's super important for the growth of culture in general, the growth of a nation in general. To have people that are really interested in propelling themselves and, you know, making money and rising to the top, and investing and being invested in their own selves. And then, you know, we have in coastal areas is, you know, postmodernism, right, where autonomy is less important, and it's more about the dissolution of the self and the rising up of everyone. And so, you know, what will it look like in the future? I don't know, but I think something that is maybe is a combination of those 2 things, like bringing back a sort of a kind of autonomy, but with a quality of dissolution. Sorry if I'm getting really esoteric, but this is really interesting to me.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think Wikipedia is sort of like on the forward edge of what collaborative culture looks like.
Look, I'm just a guy who makes beer. When one of my earliest interviews in the brewing industry, I was asked a series of questions, and the only interesting one was, what do you want from beer? The others are boring. And that question meant a lot to me because I knew exactly what I wanted from beer. And it had nothing to do with beer. And like I said, I'm a pub geek. I'm not really a beer geek. And to me, the most important thing about what I do, honestly, is that I bring people together. Beer is a beverage that, well, there's a bar owner in Washington, D.C. Who you remember the Bricks Keller?
The Brewer.
You're probably too young.
Georgetown.
Yeah. No, the Bricks Keller's in DuPont. DuPont's here. It's on Pete. Anyway. And he, the guy who I knew, his father started the Brick in like the 60s, in like the height of like, cocktail, you name it, blah, blah, blah. I said, Dad, what the hell are you doing? Why are you starting a beer bar now? And he said, look, the fact of the matter is you drink wine with your family, cocktails with your boss, but you drink beer with your friends. And what I like about beer is, let's ignore the friends thing for a moment. It really is the case that in a good pub, because it's beer, people will drop their sort of class differences, they will drop their cultural differences, and they will look and talk to each other. I've personally seen it happen hundreds of times. And it's that community feeling where I think people meet each other from other walks of life or other professions or nothing. And I think it's where things get done. I really honest to God mean that. I think the pub is an absolute cornerstone of society. And I think it's crucial to people getting to know each other and getting outside themselves. And to me, it's not what the future of collaboration is. I think it's just, God forbid we ever get rid of it. I think it's just a key thing. It's part of humanity to me. But that's
wild.
Long
live beer.
I guess for me, the future of collaboration for our company, I was just mentioning earlier, we did open about 4 weeks ago in Los Angeles, and having there's a term in the wine world called terroir, if I'm saying that right, which means to have a taste of place. That's what I take it to mean. The soil where the wine is grown and the elevation, you can taste all of that amongst other things. And we try to do that here with our ice cream. We try to have a taste of place. And so what does it mean to open in another city? And we make pretty good ice cream. We could have made it here and shipped it there. It's what most of our competitors do. And we probably would have done just fine. We probably would have sold some ice cream. It would have been cheaper and easier than what we did instead, which is, I think, contrary to what every business book would tell you, which is over the past year or two, we got to know the local chefs and artisans and farmers and producers and dairy farmers, and we recreated our entire company from scratch there with local collaborations there. And it was a little intimidating at first, and there's fancy celebrity chefs, and it's the damnedest thing because people are people. And they took our calls and they met with us and they helped us and they introduced us to other people and to their friends, and they were really excited about it. And we weren't sure if anyone would care when we opened with customers there in Los Angeles who, maybe there's some stereotypes that might lead one to think that maybe they wouldn't care about where their honey came from, like we do here in Portland. And they do. I mean, even from like our Yelp reviews to our food reviews, our customers are coming in and saying, I really appreciate learning about all of these new artisans in the city I live in. I didn't even know. Here you are coming from Portland, and how did you find all of these people? And this is so incredible. And every month you're going to come out with 5 new flavors that reflect the local city of the town of Los Angeles.
You're actually getting Los Angeles soul. It's kind of a big deal.
Oh my gosh.
All you are is magnified.
It's one of the reasons people always say, well, why didn't you want to open in San Francisco where this already exists? And Tyler and I thought, we could see this bubbling and starting to happen in Los Angeles, and we wanted to be part of it, and we wanted to support that and help create that, because that's what we think our brand is about. It's about helping create strong communities. And so that's where our future is, and we'll see if they keep caring or it's a flash in the pan, but it's been really great.
But through this, it's about jumping in, right? And really not holding anything back and kind of restarting. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of it is really, it's hyper-localism in a global network, right? So it's hyper-localism and tying all the local craft people and businesses and kind of that culture together. And maybe if the shit hits the fan, then there's resilience there because there's all those connections. So the future to me looks terribly bad. There's gonna be earthquakes and tidal waves and zombie apocalypse and like whatever else. Like I don't know. Like it's like
No water.
There's just like there's a lot of unknowns that could potentially happen. So those local connections create community and create resilience within communities, but it doesn't discount the importance of being tied to global networks and having people from all over the world know about Salt and Straw in Portland, Oregon, and maybe they do want one in LA, and your approach, isn't just to bring Portland's brand to LA, it's to help LA develop the soul and express itself in its own way. And so I did a presentation last night at Pensacola. I dropped a lot of F-bombs, and it was all about like keep Portland. Like we don't want to be San Francisco, we don't want to be LA, we don't want to be Austin, we want to be Portland. So that all of these different places really be who they are and really connect all the resources together that allow them to be who they are and create a brand and products and all of that around that, and then share that with the world and show what it means to be LA or what it means to be Austin. And what it means to be Portland is to work with incredible people across all these different industries, and it's so much fun and it's hard work, and it's really hard work, but it's so incredibly rewarding. And I think people around the world are really looking to Portland right now because I think we kind of got it figured out. We've got it figured out. We work really hard, but we also go drink beer with our buddies. We go surf on the coast. We go snowboard in the mountain. We go hike in the woods. I mean, it's a nice place. Sorry, everybody.
I think that's the best note to end the panel on. Does anyone out in the audience have a question for our panel?
Gotta be good.
Well, you play some very eloquent rules. I've sort of written this down. Collaboration, because I always associate it with chaos. But it's a value, you have a common value. Hi. Hi. We have a common value. You have to trust the people you're working with. I have to, but what are the rules of engagement to get it from chaos to collaboration? What are just a few rules of engagement that you might suggest?
I have a couple. Do your dishes. Your paper towel from the bathroom doesn't make it into the trash can, pick it up and put it in. Clean up after yourself. They're like, I don't mean to be so facetious about it, but in a shared environment where you're sharing tools, you're sharing resources, you're sharing knowledge, honor that, respect the space, respect each other, respect the tools. Because if you don't, then chaos happens, and a lot of shared collaborative workspaces end up that way because nobody's responsible. So you have a culture, teaching people what the moment might have not taught them.
Well, and part of just doing your dishes is about being present as well, right? Being in the moment and not bringing. I like analogies, so I love this, and not bringing all of your trash with you to the moment. Getting a clean slate and then being open to where those roads will lead you forward.
Yeah, ego and arrogance do not last long at ABS at all. Unacceptable.
I honestly think that whether this is said or not, I think the right way for it to do is for one individual to take the lead on any collaborative project. That may not be what people are interested in, but that's how they work best. So if you either designate either designate a leader or one clearly rises to the fore. But that's really key. Don't expect everyone to have equal say. That's kind of honestly, it's kind of ridiculous. Yeah. That's how you're going to get chaos. If you accept that one person is going to be like, I got this idea and we're all going to help you do it. To tell you the honest truth, my job mainly in the brewery, Ben is a more creative brewer than I am. I'm an old jaded fuck. Frankly. He comes with a lot more ideas. My job is to make the beer as best as I can. My collaboration is, that's what you want to do? That's how you're going to do it? Okay, this is how we need to get that done. you know? So the other thing is if it's multiple people, if it's not just 2 people, if it's multiple people, especially once it gets into the 4 range, I think you need a leader, and I think you need sort of almost like a secretary or like a cat herder or something like that, you know? And hopefully, you know what I mean? I mean, hopefully if you have those 2 individuals, then everything's gonna be okay. Someone needs to rise to the fore, and someone kind of needs to pick up the stragglers. You know?
Would you say that you need a Don Draper and a Peggy Olson?
I suppose one could say such things. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, from a functional point of view, you know.
So we have probably no more than 4, other than things get to a little messy. Consensus is definitely not the goal of collaboration, I would say.
The devil.
It's a what?
The devil.
It's the devil.
I'd say that it's. I mean, it's what I was talking about before about these different stages of culture. You know, where we have the 1950s. We have this real autonomous man energy. And then our sort of postmodern, like super groovy consensus energy, and we're really interested in something else in this combination, which is. Which it's helpful that we're smart, so we can know that at this point, a lot of us have been through so many projects, we know that there's various stages. There's a stage in collaboration where it's rightful to have a sort of consensus kind of energy. It's like, let's put all the ideas on the table, and there's no bad idea, there's no bad idea, there's no bad idea. And then there's a place where often there's a natural person that rises to the fore. Yeah. There often just is, it's really magical. And then and there's that place where there's a capacity for autonomy, a capacity for individualism within this group effort. Yeah.
Yeah. Here at eROI, we have a process team that's made up of a sampling from everyone in every department, and they came up with our rules for brainstorming, which is our most planned collaborative event. Although we're quite collaborative on an everyday basis, but this is a meeting for collaboration, so you must be collaborative in this meeting. In the first meeting, there's 2 of them actually. In the first one, there's a number total, like you can't have any more than this number. There's always a new person in that's not from the project, so they're just a new person to just sit there and give ideas. Right? They have no skin in the game. So that's the first meeting, and that meeting is all everything on the table. What do you want? Crazy, sky's the limit. And then at the end of that meeting, the goal becomes narrowing it down to what the group finds is the most compelling ideas. And you as a person can just decide that I like one idea, maybe it was even my idea, and I'm going to take it on. And I'm going to push it a few steps further to come back on the second brainstorm meeting, where, by the way, no bosses are allowed in the first one. Traditional director level bosses. And then on the second one, that's where they pitch back those ideas. They went back to their desk and done the internal thinking on those ideas after the group gave some thought. So they wrote out the ingredients for their beer, and they pitch it back. They say, we're going to make a pumpkin beer. Here's how I think we should do it. I've given it some time to think. And then the group says, pumpkin beer is gross. Here's how we would make it better. And you push that idea and drive it a little bit further. But you've had the opportunity to say, here's the kind of consensus, sky's the limit thinking. Now go and have your individual time to push the idea a little bit further, give it some legs, and then present it back in a cohesive way. By the way, all of those meetings, there's always, I think, a max of 5 people. Well, 6, because you have the one person who's like the outsider, the newbie that can give the fresh idea.
And then after that, someone has to start saying no.
And then after that, right, then the directors and then all of the team in there come in and kind of make the decision, what are the 4 or the 3 ideas we're going to present that we're actually going to bring to the table for fruition. And I think that allows those ideas to kind of flourish. That probably wasn't the process at all, so I apologize to anyone at eROI who thinks I was wrong.
Should be.
Any other questions?
How do you guys deal with the problem that comes up in collaborations where just the loudest person in the room gets sort of what they want?
I don't know. I don't know. So oftentimes the loudest person in the room is like, right? They have like the ego and arrogance and all that stuff. Really, I don't know. Like, you, I think I don't know. For I guess at ADX, it's kind of we kind of call people on things when they're acting that way. You kind of call them out on it, like face to face and real time accountability. And like people are, it's amazing. It's really hard for people to hear, like to have what they're doing reflected back at them face to face. I think people are used to getting away with shit on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and whatever. And so when you call them on it face to face, there's a certain personal accountability and reflection that has to happen. And they either get it or they don't. And if they don't, then they're out. We've had to fire 7 members so far in 3.5 years, and we're not afraid to do that because it only takes one toxic person to contaminate the culture. And we give them 3 chances. So it's we're going to talk to you. If you don't change your behavior, we'll sit down with you and talk to you about how you need to remedy it. And if you don't do it then this is not the right place for you. So.
But it's part of your culture for that accountability. So it's not just necessarily you having that discussion, but it's everyone holding each other accountable.
Yeah, it's not just like it's people have given feedback. This person is talking negative. They're complaining about things. They're just being that kind of they're a know-it-all. The person that knows it all that drives. There's always one person. Oh my. Yeah. And we all try not to be that person too. Because I'm sure sometimes I'm probably that person in some environments, some environments I might be that person.
Yeah, see, I was going to say the brew house is not a democracy. So if we're collaborating with someone and it's not going well, and if I'm in charge of the brew house, I just change it.
Yeah.
I'm just like, no, we're not going to put that much in. That's a bit. No, I tell them afterwards. It's pretty basic.
Well, I think that's that ownership too. Like somebody has to take the lead and make a decision and say no. And no is a hard thing, I think, in this Portland collaborative. We all love each other, but it can be really passive aggressive and kind of backstabbing kind of culture that we have here. But just literally just saying, nope, sorry.
Yeah, we're going to protect what we're doing.
It's a business.
It's more important. Yeah, I mean, we do all of our collaborations based on relationships with people we like, and so I don't know that we really have that problem, but we also, we're making the calls, and it is hard to say no sometimes, and it is the most important thing to do because it has to taste good in the end, and it has to be fun, and otherwise we just
and your name's on it.
Yeah, which is. Means a lot. Yeah. There's no compromising on that ever.
We've had some situations though that speak to that where there's 3 of us that founded pair, and then we had a 4th person that joined us, and then a 5th person, and we our voices are all really important in certain decisions. And there's certain of us, I'm not that person, but there are certain of us who really have a hard time speaking in groups, and their opinion is really valuable. And there have been times where we have really rolled over people and not heard their point of view, and they've not been able to speak, and it's to a detriment. And we really have to step back and sort of think about how we do staff meeting, how we do meetings, do some experimentation with changing the format. So meetings are not about popcorn style. That sometimes we do our meetings in organized fashion, so everyone has a set time where they can have a voice. No questions asked. So and different meetings in different ways. So we've done a lot of experimentation with the structure of the meeting in order to really support different communication styles.
Well, and that's what I really like about the process that we have here for our brainstorm meetings is that you give the opportunity for the people who are after the fact thinkers to take those ideas and stew on them and then present them back in a really thoughtful way. Because speaking as someone who is a loud speaker, they're probably thinking more quality things than maybe I am, because I'm coming off the cuff. I'm the quantity, they are quality. But to structure your meetings in your culture to be able to give that atmosphere, I think is key.
Well, it's so critical for staff, because I'm the sole owner of the company, and I have my staff, and I'm counting on them to do great work and come up with great ideas, and so Sometimes I am the loudest voice in the room, smashing all the great ideas potentially. So it's really coming up with that opportunity for them to take ownership and giving space for that, for them to collaborate outside of, when I'm not there.
And being aware of the
Yeah.
power dynamic.
Yeah.
There really is a power dynamic.
You're absolutely right. Sometimes your job as whatever you want to call a manager, leader, whatever, is realizing that you have people that you work with that are quiet and will never, even if you give them time in a meeting, they will not speak in a meeting.
Right.
And so sometimes you need to realize that, and this helps with collaboration too, is you need to take these people aside and talk to them about something else.
Yeah.
Just be like, so blah, 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 blah. How do you think the meeting was? It's great. Hey, how's your dog doing?
Well, that's why we
And
go to the breweries.
Yeah, right.
We talk about
Right,
that.
exactly. You have to get to know the people you work with to the point that you can
Yeah.
eventually draw out what their contribution is. We have a young woman who's incredibly important to us, who's exactly like that in our business. And I just know how to get out of actually what, I know that she needs to tell me stuff. No, I'm not, it's not thumb screws, it's the sort of like, actually, let's sit you down and get you a cup of coffee and let's talk about your dogs and blah, 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 blah. And is there anything you want to tell me, by the way? No. Well, there it is. You know what I mean?
Comes out more on the one-on-one as a
Yeah,
regular
yes,
person,
yeah,
not a, let's sit down, this is the hour and a half we have to talk about this.
Right. Yeah. So, but that's important. Again, in every collaboration, I think there's a leader, regardless of what it is. And I think it's that person's job, hopefully, or the herder. It's one of those two things.
Well, but getting together in different environments too has been really important for us.
Totally.
Going and touring Leatherman, like we're just like,
Yeah. Gives you ideas like suddenly,
Yeah, so we're like watching how the sausage is made in other industries and other places, and like you all kind of have that experience together, and then having beer together and being able to sit down.
Yeah, it's more relaxed.
You guys are good? More questions? If there are no more questions, I think we might as well hang out and chat one-on-one, kind of find those stories. I really need to thank you all. This has been a really great experience, and there's going to be some good collaborations here within this room. So
I want to say a last thing, if anyone wants to see ADX at a pair benefit, then I'm going to talk to these guys about inviting for this event. On November 8th, there's a fundraiser for ADX, and there's flyers back there for that.
No one leave. We've got salt and straw ice cream. Kim, what flavors are
I
there?
think we have almond brittle, which is my grandmother's recipe, and sea salt with caramel, which is a collaboration with Mark Bitterman, who owns the Meadow and is one of the top salt experts in the world. So, my grandmother and Mark Bitterman.
there you go.
Start a mini controversy by
I don't know why. No, I'm sure. I didn't walk away.
Dude. I'm 39 now. I can't do this. You wake up on Sunday and you're like, God, I haven't watched the dog in years. In what year?
That's my question. I would
It's like a bunch of artists, fabricators, craft people, that have done distortion. They work together and get contracts and things, and they collaborate. They might be building fixtures for schools. Just talking about say that someone might want to be for locals or it's like just people doing stuff. Yeah, it's just think of it as kind of a hub. It kind of wanders around as far as around. There's just going to be little areas of this, areas of that. For artists, Go out and listen to this. This might tell we're going to move to traffic lights. Assistant sources. I mean, the first thing I love when I walk in is the sources. I just love all the basic arbitrary